Welcome back to this series of Learning Simplified. In this video, we will try to understand about bonds and treasury bills. Bonds. Yes, the term may sound confusing and maybe complicated, but actually it is very simple to understand, especially if you try to correlate it with shares and stocks, which you would be very much familiar with. Now, if you want to take the definition, a bond is a fixed income instrument that represents a loan made by an investor to a borrower. The borrower could be a corporate or a government. Just like a corporate issues shares and stocks to garner funds, bond is a similar instrument used by corporates or governments. The owners of bonds become the creditors to the issuer of the bond. Now let's try to understand how shares and stocks work, because that will help us in correlating it with our understanding of bonds. A company ABC issues 100,000 shares of INR 10 each as part of an initial public offering to mop up 10 lakh funds for its expansion. So, an investor buys the share for two reasons. One, for dividends which the company may issue out of its cash surplus. And more importantly, the investor hopes for an appreciation of share price. He or she may think that the INR 10 may become INR 20 in due course of time and he could make a neat profit. Such is the case with bonds as well. So let's take a small example to understand it better. A corporate ABC wants to raise funds to the tune of 50,000 USD. It has two ways of doing it. It could issue shares or stocks in the stock market as we saw in the previous slide, or it could issue bonds. So let's assume they issue 500 bond certificates, each having the value of 100. So it means 50,000 USD it wants to mop up. It issues it on 1st Jan 2020. It also gives a coupon to make it attractive. It's 6% semi-annual, which means for every bond which the investor holds, the investor will get 6% of the face value. So if the investor has bought one bond, it will get 6 USD for every 6 months. If it has 10 bonds, 60 USD every 6 months. The maturity is 5 years, which means in this case that it will mature on 31st December 2024. The listing price might be USD 95. The bond can be issued at a discount or a premium or at par. Discount means it is less than the face value, which in this case could be 95 USD. A premium issuance would be that it is more than the face value. At par means it is issued exactly at the face value, which is USD 100. So in my example, let's have the issue price as 95 USD, which is a discount. Let's try to take an example of a transaction. A bank XYZ decides to invest in those bonds. Obviously, it will not buy the whole of the bonds. It decides to invest 10,000 USD. So how many bonds he has to buy? It has to buy 100 because each face value is 100. It has to pay not 100 into 100, but 95 into 100, 9,500 USD because it lists at a discount. Now, what would be the amount it receives on maturity? It will receive the face value, which means 100 into 100, which is equal to 10,000 USD. So as you can see, he makes a neat profit of 500 USD, the redemption amount minus what he paid at the beginning. So obviously a very juicy deal for an investor, and it's almost risk-free. But wait, that's not the only way the investor makes money. It also makes money by way of the coupon which it gets periodically. Now we know that it listed at 95, redeemed at 100. There are going to be periodic cash flows, which in this example is every 6 months. So every 6 months it receives a coupon which is equal to face value into rate into quantity. So in this case, the face value was 100 USD, rate is 0.06, which is 6%, and the quantity, which is the number of bond certificates which it held, was 100. So he gets a neat 600 USD every 6 months. So apart from the profit he makes at redemption, he also gets periodic coupon payouts. Now let us try to understand who gets those coupons. But before that, Bank XYZ had two options. It could have held those debentures or the bonds till maturity, or it could have sold the bonds to another bank at the end of year 2 or year 3. For example, let's take in this scenario, it could have potentially sold it to another bank, DEF, at the rate 98 USD because the price is appreciated from 95 which it paid initially. So for the period where XYZ was holding the bonds, they would get the coupons, which is the first two schedules. And for the remaining tenor, because DEF was the owner, the DEF bank would get the coupon or the monthly or the semi-annual payouts. So whoever holds the bond certificates on those coupon dates, they will get the coupon. However, things can get more complicated, which we'll see in the next session of Understanding Bonds Advanced. Now, we always correlated with stocks, but there are very key differences between these two. The most important being the stockholders are the owners, it's equity, whereas the bondholders are lenders. Stocks are obviously very high risk as it depends on the issuer's performance, market conditions, whereas bonds are low risk, fixed interest instruments. So during the times of COVID-19, stock prices have plummeted and returns have reduced. But even in these times, the bonds are giving you a fixed interest, so it's low risk. Stocks also give periodic dividends, but they're never guaranteed. So in years where the stocks or the company doesn't have any cash surplus, it may not give a dividend. But coupon payments, the company or the corporate is duty bound to share it. Because the stockholders are owners, they have the right to vote at the AGMs or the annual general meetings. The bondholders, they don't get a right to vote, but it is important to note that they get preference in terms of repayment in the event the company files for bankruptcy or liquidates. Stocks, as we know, are traded in the stock market, whereas bonds are not traded, but they are available over the counter. And finally, stocks don't have a maturity date. They are traded perpetually until, of course, the company decides to delist from the stock market or it calls for a specific buyback of its shares. Bonds have a fixed maturity date. Now let's try to understand treasury bills, which are very similar to bonds, but there are some key differences. Most important, they do not have coupon payouts. They do not have those interest schedules. Hence, they are also known as zero coupon bonds or red CBs. Then why would anybody or an investor invest in treasury bills if they do not have coupon payouts? For one, they are always issued at discount. So in the example below, they will be always issued less than the face value, which is 100 USD. So obviously when you redeem at face value, you will bound to make a profit. They are issued by the central bank on behalf of the government, which means it is an extremely low risk because they are sovereign bonds. And finally, they are usually very short termed, which is 91, 182, 364 days is the example. Thanks for watching this tutorial. So if you like this, do like, share and subscribe for more such videos. Of course, the next one coming up would be an advanced session on bonds, as we have to look into some more complex terminologies like X interest, cum interest, understanding yield to maturity, redemption premium, and so on. Thank you.